And I think it's kind of unfair when you have two different media personalities who have done similar things. One arguably is far worse and he has received absolutely no punishment for it and the other person has lost his job.
I don't think it's fair at all. And I try to put myself in that position when I'm talking about these subjects. So I think it's important to be like, what would I actually have done? And
It's like, I would have gone for the $50,000 cash.
I would have. Well,
I'd name this episode McLaren Man for 50 grand.
We will. This episode is called McLaren Man.
An ode to McLaren Man. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Laura.
And I don't often do this, but I'm coming straight hot out of the gate.
Heavy, sweating,
Huge news.
humid,
Huge news.
pulsating.
I am pulsating. I was pulsating. Nothing got me hotter than what I'm about to say.
Covered in passata, rolling around in some garlic.
No, garlic gives me IBS. I would never do that. Garlic bloats me. It makes me fart.
Parmesan cheese.
This is not farting news.
A bit of gnocchi.
Officially, we don't live in Romania anymore. I'm sorry, Dracula. You were great while it lasted.
I don't think you ever really liked it that much. I think you were trying to feign excitement. You know when you don't like something, but you're just trying to keep positive?
Wasn't my top destination. No, 100%. I didn't dislike it, but it was never somewhere that I was like, fuck yes. Like I get to go hang in Romania for a couple of weeks. But I made the most of it for sure. And like I did what I could do there and I tried to be a tourist but it was just whatever. But we no longer live in Romania. As of yesterday, we officially live in Italy. It's like the
Ciao Bellas.
Ciao pasta.
Yeah. For someone who talks about how you used to live in Italy for an entire year, your Italian isn't great, but you can work on it. And I think one day you're going to be
Mi
fluent.
dispiace, una copetta di 2 euro, stracciatella cioccolate.
You're just ordering 2 ice creams.
Bicchiere. I just ordered ice creams and a bottle of wine with 1 glass.
That's all she needed to learn in Italian.
I'm glad that you got the important things down pat, though.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I learnt when I got there. How to ask for the toilet, the time, che ora è, that's the time, what's the time, please? And then how to order wine. So in serious news, Ben just yesterday moved to, I'm so proud of him. It is the biggest, best move of his career. It's one of the top 5 leagues in the world. Like this is the most amazing move for him. So he lives in Genoa. That's how you pronounce it.
Of course he does.
But if you don't know what
Say it
that
again
is,
slowly.
well, it actually is Genoa. It's, like Genoa, but I didn't know it's pronounced Genoa.
With a deeper voice. Genoa.
Genoa.
Hot.
Oh, it's hot. It's hot, Genoa. So it's really exciting. So he signed there. It was just announced. He signed there yesterday. He had like 24 hours notice to move. And he literally called me and he's like, what do you think about Italy? And I said, my panties are off. My panties are off. Sign me up. Sign that dotted line right now.
I will do it if I have to. Hey, so I came over to Britt's house yesterday and this is when you told me the news as well.
Yeah.
And it does feel like it all happened very, very quickly. And that's because it did. Are we allowed to talk about the speed of which?
Yeah.
Like Ben left his house, didn't pack anything, left a completely full apartment in Romania and flew to Italy and now lives in Italy. It's a wild thing to get your head around that is how someone could be transferred.
It's actually crazy. And that's not just him. That's normal. That's standard like football transfers. When something comes through and a team says that they want you, it's usually negotiated in like 24 hours and then they want you the next day. That's it. So he still has a whole apartment in Romania with all his stuff. He literally packed 1 bag and 1 carry-on of his life and flew the next morning. But I was like, it doesn't matter how quick it is. We'll sort out your apartment in Romania.
You're like, I don't care so long as I now live in Italy. So long as my next holiday is not Romania and it's next to Positano.
Oh, I Googled it. First thing I Googled Genoa. I was like, would you like to go on a day trip to Positano? And I was like, yes, I would.
This is also the reason why. So when Britt and Ben first started dating and then we like flirted with the idea of you doing records from overseas, we got all the equipment for Life Uncut for you to be able to record overseas. And this is the reason why it's still in Scotland because
I don't know where it is now.
Well, like Ben had to move so quickly to Romania and you got to Romania. You're like, where's my stuff? And he's like, oh, it's in Scotland. And now he's in Italy and
it's in Romania.
He's just leaving a fucking trail of stuff all over the world, no matter where he goes.
He actually is. So if I go to visit him and it's in record time, I will take stuff now because I've got a cord in Romania and I've got a microphone in Scotland and I've got who knows where anything is.
Well, it just means you're prepared no matter where you end up.
100%. But that means we can all go and do a trip in Italy, maybe.
I am so keen.
Life Uncut
I'm
takes Italy.
not even slightly joking. I am so keen for us to have international. Do we have any listeners in Italy?
We do.
I don't know.
can
Slide into the
check.
DM so then we can tax deduct it.
Oh, yeah, we just need one person's proof.
I think if we go over there and we pick up a business card, I think that that's enough, right? Maybe not since I've now talked about it on the pod.
Maybe cut
Yeah.
that.
I've just opened up the back end of the podcast. Last month, 170 listens came from Italy. That counts.
Wow.
170 people.
Not people.
That's sorry. That's
listens.
true. That could be
yeah.
one person listening to 170 episodes. That's all we need, baby.
That one Italian listener.
We've got one.
It's probably an Australian just traveling through as well. They're not even there now.
But it doesn't matter now.
And Italy's Italy,
it
goddammit.
doesn't matter now because we live in the pasta, coffee capital of the world. We live in Italy.
Well, we are very happy for Ben. And in particular, we are very, very excited for our tax
Work
deduction
meetings.
work trip that we are absolutely having in Positano
Absolutely.
as a mandatory. Well, I mean, lots of things have been happening in my household. Actually, that's a lie. Nothing's been really happening in my household. I just feel like I'm living vicariously through my husband because I have been put in charge of managing his socials and making sure that people vote for him and I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Matt's now been gone for 2 weeks. And tonight, because we're recording this on Tuesday, he is doing one of those fucked up eating challenges.
Praying for him. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
This is why I think it's a bit rigged. Because that was the one thing that he said he did not want to do. Like that he would absolutely die if he had to do it.
I said the same thing though. I don't think it's rigged. It's just there's so many of them and there's not that many people in the jungle. It's just the way the cookie or the nipple crumbles.
It's just how the anus falls apart.
It's just how the
Slow
anus
cooked in your mouth.
gets in your mouth.
Ew. But yeah, look, just wanted to sneak it in there and say go vote for him. We'll put it in the show
Okay.
notes.
I'll be shocked if he doesn't vomit. It is. I cannot explain how rank. I was beside myself upset at it. I was upset. I was
We know that-
genuinely upset that I had, but even before I went there, like the anticipation because you know it's made to be so you vomit. I was really beside myself. And
the
then,
stink bugs.
well, then they cut out my projectile vomiting. It was too much for TV. They didn't air half of it because I was like,
Brittany, I don't believe for 1 second that you're too much for TV.
oh, no, the vomit was too much for TV. It's like a nipple flew out of my face.
Ew.
I coughed at one point. I gagged. I went like this, like that, and a bit flung out and hit Robert's shoe. And they couldn't air it. It hit Robert's shoe. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
I feel sick even thinking about it and the thought that I have to watch that tonight at the same time as eating dinner. Because it's like,
Well, that's a choice.
Yeah,
You
but-
don't have to eat your dinner at the same time.
well, it's like 7 o'clock. It's like dinner time. Tucker Tuesdays
Wait,
is dinner time.
Wait half an hour, Laws. You don't have to be getting into your ravioli while he's eating his nipples.
Nah. So every week the production gets in touch about different things. Either they want you to post stuff from the content that they've provided or they're trying to collect things for like the letters from home. You know, I had to write a letter for you when you were in there.
Yeah. There's always
about-
like some connection to home.
Like, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well, sweetie.
No, I remember what you said.
No one's taken the bins out for 2 weeks and the grass is dying, you know, like that sort of updates from home.
I remember saying Laura sending me a subliminal message because you said, keep being your fun self, be fun, be who you are, be fun. And then I turned around to the team and I said, they've given me a boring edit to the cast. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, I can read between the lines. I was like, Laura doesn't tell me to be my fun self 4 times. I was like, and that's why I was like, I'm getting a boring edit. I knew it.
And then, yeah, oh, you
And
are
I
getting
tried
a
to be
boring
funner.
edit.
I tried to be funner. They cut it. I was so fun in there. I was the funnest in there.
How much fun were you?
I
10
was
fun.
so fun in there. I was doing cartwheels. I was doing sports.
I
was making jokes.
I was making jokes. I think that they did it to protect you, Britt. I think your version of fun, I was doing cartwheels. No one wants to see a grown woman doing cartwheels on national TV.
No one also wants to see Callum in bed farting.
I do.
Over
Anyway.
me doing, okay, don't worry.
Over you doing a cartwheel? Obviously, I'm a Celebrity is taking over my household and I have been watching it very religiously. However, there is another show which has just taken over everybody else's lives. And normally I am the one on this podcast who is an absolute devout watcher and consumer of Married at First Sight. But this year, the tables have been all turned around and switcherooed. Britt, you watched last night's episode and you have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it.
The turn has tabled and now I watched MAFS. I never thought I would say that.
Did you hate it or did you love it?
I think both simultaneously, both can be true. I couldn't stop watching it like a train wreck. But nothing has made me so enraged. Like, I was so angry, and that's why I remember that I didn't like to watch it in the past, because I don't need the anger in my life. And I was messaging my friends about it. There was one person, and producer Keisha, I know you watched it as well. There was one person in the show that I have not disliked so fast in my life. And it was one of the bride's sisters. So one of the brides, Lauren, we're introduced to her. She seems lovely at the start. I shouldn't say at the start, but I don't align with what she aligns with. She really wants to be like 1920s bride. She wants to be at home and cook and clean, and he goes to work, and she wants very stereotypical old school gender roles. Couldn't care less if that's what you want. Like, if that's what you want and you find a partner that's what you want, that's amazing. Happy. But that's not what I align with, obviously. But that's fine. I'm not going to judge her for that. But it was her sister. So it's Lauren's sister, Tamara, who was, I guess, almost the star of the first episode in a way. She really stole the show. And she was just the most horrible person that I thought, this can't be real. Like, surely you can't be like that on national television at your sister's wedding.
I did flick over. So as soon as Celebrity had finished, I flicked over to MAFS and I caught the end tail of this. And I don't believe for 1 second that that wasn't heavily produced. Like, I don't actually think that there is anyone in this world who has that little self-awareness that would behave the way that she behaved at the wedding. I saw that there was like drama around her getting the wrong meal and the way she spoke to the wait staff, and then like she was heckling her own sister in the first dance. This is my only gripe with MAFS, because I love MAFS. I am a MAFS fan. I think it is too overproduced now, because I think they know that they need these really extreme characters for people to have the outrage that you've obviously felt, Britt. But I think if you've watched enough seasons of it, you start to see the patterns, and you start to see that actually those people are playing a specific character. And I think she's absolutely been egged up to be that person, and to have that kind of like bait and switch around having the bride be like seemingly lovely and having the sister be like the devil's evil stepsister type situation.
Yeah,
The black
because
and white.
there's no way if their relationship, the sister's relationship, was really like that, and she really was that horrible 24/7. There's no way you should be at the wedding. There is
no.
zero way you would ever speak to her again. And you do see at the end, Tamara, the sister, walks out. She's had enough because she didn't get her pescatarian meal, she said. And she said, I'm the bride's sister. You are not treating me like I'm important enough, kind of thing. And at the end, she goes, I'm not giving you any more. And you hear her say that as she walks off. And I feel like that is a nod to the production aspect, where they're like, just give us something else, give us something else. But something I did want to talk about that happened on there was a new couple, Karina and Paul. Now, this apparently has never happened in MAFS history, but they get to the wedding. They are at the end of the aisle. They're like frothing each other to the audience. They're like, you're very handsome, you're very beautiful, blah, blah, blah. It looks amazing. And you're like, wow, these people look really suited to each other. And he's really like, she is stunning. Oh my God, I'm stoked. Like, then she walks off camera and she says to a producer, basically, find me someone else, get me a new husband. I know him. And the producer looks really shocked. They're like, what? You know him? Like, oh my God. And I'm like, as if you don't know that from a production aspect. But apparently, long story short, they had dated before briefly. They'd matched online. They'd dated in Perth. They'd gone on a hike, had a really amazing date. They kept texting each other, and then he ghosted her. So he just literally never messaged her again. The first contact that they have had from that original date was on national television getting married.
So stupid. But also, like, they have to both be in on it for them to have known that they've been ghosted. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do they? Otherwise, this is like the most serendipitous, incredible production that's ever existed. Or it's very, very manufactured, and they've found two people who have been on a date and then ghosted each other. The thing is, though, is that that would be a particularly hard thing to find, because how would you know, unless someone's spoken publicly about going on a date with this person and being ghosted, how would you know that those two people have ever been together previously? So I just think that this has to be orchestrated as well for it to have actually been a discovery.
I don't know. I don't know,
Mhm.
because the one thing that I did notice about this season, and I don't know if it's just the first ones that have gotten married, is that they seem to be matching them more with location, which I think is a really wise thing, because if you get
Yeah.
someone who's from Perth and someone who's from Sydney, one person, if it works out, is going to have to move to the other side of the country. Like, Perth is not that big of a city. I've got a lot of friends from there, and I think that the dating pool, from what I've heard, it's pretty like you've kind of been through everybody. You're
So
like,
you think it was totally serendipitous that they have been matched together?
I don't know. I think it could have been, but
Nah.
I was kind of picturing what I would do in that situation if I was walking down the aisle and this whole production had happened because I was on MAFS and I recognized him. Like, it's surprising to me how long it took for them to be like, guys, what the fuck? Like, to the producers, I'm surprised they didn't say anything in the actual ceremony.
I wonder if the ghosting was a bonus. So this is what I think has happened because Laura and I have obviously done a lot of reality TV. We've done a dating reality TV show. You know the due diligence that they do on each person. What I think has probably happened is they've found the contestants that they think could be an option. And then they go through their social medias. I just wonder if maybe they were following each other on social media and the production team have at least seen that there's some form of connection without knowing what. And then maybe when the ghosting came out, they've been like, bingo, like we couldn't have asked for that.
Yeah, because remember last year, wasn't there a couple that they were like intruders or something like that and they went to the same gym or they knew each other's name, remember? One of them got down the aisle and he was like, oh, hey, I can't remember whose name it was. But they had that moment where they realized that they actually knew each other from, they hadn't dated though. They just knew each other. I think it was through like a gym connection or something. But the funniest thing about that situation with Paul and with Karina is that up until the point where she was like, I know this guy and we've been dating before, I realized that I still have so much work to do. I think I've learned so much from like producing this podcast and hearing so many of the experts talk about dating and relationships. But up until that point, I was like, he's the catch. He's the one where they've just got this amazing guy to like have on the whole season that everyone falls in love with. He's the guy, he's talking French to her. He's handsome. He's tall. He's like hardworking. Like he's got all of it, right?
Keisha was like, he's absolutely my kind of guy. This is in the car this morning. And I was like,
Fuck me up.
I was like, oh, so he must be a fuckboy then. Like, I was like, the red flags must be swaying around. And Keisha was like,
Well, funnily enough, yeah, it turns out he's actually been on that show, The Love Boat. He seems like the guy who just tells you exactly what you want to hear. And I laughed to myself because I was like, I still to this day would have fallen for that. Like,
she's like, I am not as progressive as I thought I was.
But here's the question. What do you reckon you would do? Or have you ever gone back as like someone you've been dating completely like fucking cut you off, like hardcore ghosting. Then they've come back. So they've zombied you. And then you're like, yeah, cool. I'll tap that again.
To be honest, I can't, like, nothing comes to mind as like an immediate example. However, I just know that, yes, I absolutely would have.
You're
like,
both as bad as each
I think about, like, you guys know, there's no secrets here. My dating in my 20s was an absolute fucking shit show. The amount of things that I tolerated or was just like, yeah, second time. Hurt me again. That sounds good.
people can change.
Yeah, people can change. He'll change for me. I'm the exception. Like, I would have done that easily. I also was the
I would have
person.
too.
I was also the ghoster who resurrected myself many times because and now I think about it and I'm like, I only did that because I was bored and lazy. And not lazy, sorry, bored and lonely. I was just lonely and I wanted company and I went through my phone and I was like, fuck, guess we got to go back to that guy.
Don't you guys remember? I think I told you on the podcast, but I had been on this dating app and I'd matched with this guy and we were talking and then I ghosted him. He kept wanting to meet up and I was just like, fucking nah, not interested, couldn't be bothered. Ghosted him. 3 years later.
People change.
3 years, I went on the app and the conversation was still there and I was like, got nothing else going on. I was like, ready for that drink. He was like, yeah, okay. That was it. 3 years. I ghosted him for 3 years and he said yes without skipping a beat. We went to the date and it was the most boring night of my life. And I was like, that's why I ghosted you.
Did you fuck him still?
Absolutely yes. No, I didn't. We didn't even kiss. I was like, within 10 minutes, I was like, this is why you go with your gut.
Were you like, I can't wait to ghost you again?
I was like, gotta
See
go.
you in 3 years.
I was like, gotta go to the toilet. Never came back. No.
I think though, your message, ready for that drink, well played. Because I think most people would have been, how have you been? And it's like, there's too much that's happened in 3 years. I can't catch you up.
I'm pretty sure what I wrote to him was the answer to what he asked me 3 years ago. I just continued. Yeah, it was a continued conversation 3 years later. I just pretended that 3 years didn't go by. I literally just was like, how's 7 p.m.?
To be fair though, good on him for not being angry because the amount of people, and maybe, I don't know if this is still a case on Tinder and on online dating, but you'll be talking for a little while and you'll go cold because you're just kind of not into the chat. And like, if you're not committed to the person, you've not been on a date or anything, I think it's okay to go cold on someone when it comes to chatting to them. It's just kind of part and parcel of online dating. The amount of men who take it as a personal insult and then get angry at you because you haven't replied to their messages. To me, I think that is like such a determining factor of someone's red flags, right? Like if their response to you not replying is like, I thought you were looking for someone, but clearly you don't have time. No, am I the only one who received those type of messages?
Yeah, because I was so desperate. I was like, I was on the receiving end.
Keisha's like, I'm there at 7. I'm outside in the bushes. Come out.
Keisha never didn't reply.
Keisha triple texted.
But for this couple, though, they'd actually been on a date. Also, I don't know if they'd hooked up. It kind of gave a little bit of I was like, there's a bit more to this. I feel as though you guys hooked up and then he ghosted you. And that's why you're a bit like, no, like I was a bit of a shit time.
Also, yeah, I mean, if you've been ghosted in the past by someone, and I mean like true ghosting, like really poor form.
Like 3 years.
You've slept with a guy and then they've just absolutely fucking blocked you.
What would that feel like? I have no idea.
Well, but I think in this...
by the way, that was sarcasm. I absolutely know what that feels like.
We got that sarcasm.
We all read between the lines. I don't know. It calls into question the kind of ethics around the show, which it does every year. But it's like sometimes there are people who are undeserving of another chance or undeserving of you trying to work out whether or not you would be a good match. And it's like, I kind of feel sorry that this woman is now in a position where in order to be in the experiment, she has to give a guy who's already treated her really badly and like already compromised her boundaries a chance at being and showing himself to be a good guy. It's a shit situation for her.
Yeah, and I did find the next part that happened of that evening, I found it really interesting. So they were at the wedding ceremony and he said to her, are you happy if I go and speak to your family and tell them about what happened and our history and stuff like that? And she was like, yeah, great. And then so he goes up to her parents and says, I just want to be really honest and forward. And he explained it. And he basically said, like, I didn't treat her right. I ghosted her, whatever. I didn't message her. But then put it down to like, I wasn't in the right headspace.
Ugh.
No, but wait, it fucking worked. Then they do an interview with the parents. Their dad said, it's just so admirable. I think he's really admirable that he told the truth and he's obviously very respectable. And then she was like, not many people would be able to go and speak to my parents like that. And I was like, wow, he just master manipulated the entire situation.
He's also just someone who's absolutely very good at and is literate in TV, like reality TV literate.
Yeah.
So he knows that this is a situation he can't get out of. He knows he's going to be painted badly for being the ghoster. And the only way to repaint that picture and to be seen as someone who is actually a stand-up guy is to face it that way, which just means that he has either like a understanding of reality TV or he has enough self-awareness of how he comes across, probably from his lessons he's learned from his last experience of reality TV as to how he's going to navigate this.
Or he might have changed.
Oh my God, Keisha.
I don't want to judge the guy too quick because at the end of the day.
I do. I haven't even watched it and I am.
At the end of the day, there is something that's like, cool, you don't have a choice but to own the situation. So I'm glad you did own it. I just think it's fascinating to watch, like from a fly on the wall, that you can use that honesty as like a bit of a manipulation technique. And whether that was an intentional or not, it very much worked. Like we just said, we've all ghosted people. Everyone does it if you go on one date or whatever and you're not interested. So I don't want to hold that against him, but I just feel like what Keisha said, I think there was more there. I think he was a bit more of a turd burger than he's letting on. So maybe they did hook up or there was more of a connection and then he just completely blanked us. So that's, yeah, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt for now because it's very early days.
You don't need to, it's MAFS.
You sound exactly like I did when I was dating. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they've evolved. The guys who are manipulators, though, they have evolved, guys. We've spoken about this with some guys who use therapy talk as a weapon. Keep your wits about you.
Yeah. Anyway,
Keep your eyes open.
I don't know if I'll watch anymore.
I feel gypped because like I really want to be watching it and now I kind of feel as though I have to support my husband. It's a real damn shame.
Oh, what are you going to do?
Well, support my husband.
Oh.
I think I have to.
Just watch the highlights.
Everyone vote 10 times Maddie J. Something that the three of us have been talking about for the last couple of weeks, and it has been in the media again this week. So we were going to talk about it on last week's podcast, but unfortunately Britt's infestation of huntsmans reigns supreme.
Shock.
However, there's been updates and we thought if we're still talking about it 2 weeks later, it might be something that you guys are interested in as well. You may know the Today Show host. His name is Alex Cullen. He was recently stood down from the show for breaching the laws around cash for comment. Him being suspended from his job and taken off the show has been quite controversial. Now, the reasoning for this is you might be familiar with the billionaire. His name's Adrian Portelli. He's the billionaire block guy who rocks up at all the block auctions and buys pretty much all the houses.
Well, they call him Lambo Guy because from like the first season, he rocked up in his like fluoro bright Lamborghini, and that's been his nickname since. And he's decided he doesn't like that nickname anymore.
Yeah, so he wants to rename himself basically. And the Lambo Guy kind of moniker that's followed him around, I mean, there's worse things you could be called.
Yeah, but McLaren Man's not that much better. That's
What is a McLaren? Is it a type of car?
It's a luxury car.
a very
It's a bit like-
expensive car.
Like Lambos are hot and sporty. McLarens are like the same, but kind of considered a little bit more. I was gonna say
Classy.
classy.
This whole thing is so stupid. So basically, Lambo Guy no longer wanted to be called Lambo Guy. So Adrian Portelli got onto his social media and he said, I will give $50,000 to any journalist or presenter who talks about me and uses a different name first. And that different name that he wanted to go by was McLaren Man. Now, this was all done as a bit of jest. However, the reason why this has become so controversial is because Alex Cullen was the reporter who took him up on the bet. There was a cross during the Australian Open that involved Sarah Abdo and Karl Stefanovic. Have a listen to this.
A little bit of celebrity spotting today. Deborah Lee Furness has been here, Danny Minogue as well. Adrian Portelli, a.k.a. the McLaren Guy, likely to make an appearance
Lambo
here today
Guy,
as well.
Alex.
But look,
It's a different luxury car.
yeah. No, I think it's pretty sure it's McLaren Guy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely McLaren.
Definitely
He's probably got both
McLaren
of them.
Guy.
We can split the 50 grand.
Yeah. You
Give
got
him
it,
away.
Carlos.
I got you.
The reason this has escalated to the point that it has is because Adrian Portelli, McLaren Man, do you reckon he'll give it to me actually? if I
Lambo
say
Guy.
it?
McLaren Man.
McLaren!
I'll cash for comment.
I'll
The laws
call
are
you-
different on podcasts. I'll do
call
anything.
you whatever you want.
You want me to call you Daddy? Give me 50K.
Daddy McLaren Man. We could split that actually. So the reason, it escalated is because
Did that sound desperate? Yes. Yes, it was.
We are. Give us 50K. Adrian paid up. Adrian was like, this was not a joke. I'm going to give you 50K. Well done. Transferred him 50K. Took screenshots of it, posted it, Alex shared it. It was all a bit of a PR funny jest. There was nothing that was secret about it. No one was trying to hide it. Like they really lent in. I saw it happening and thought, funny. So colloquially in our industry, it's called cash for comment. You're basically not allowed to be paid for any brand or personal advertising without making it very clear that it is a sponsored advertised post. That is what is in all media, but it looks different in different capacities for TV or for radio or for podcasting. Like everyone has their set of rules.
Yes, McLaren Man, it looks different for podcasting.
Just to be clear, McLaren Man, the rules do not stand here for podcasting.
These standards are also set by ACMA, which is the governing body who puts rules and regulations in place to ensure that, free-to-air TV and radio and everybody else are abiding by an ethical code of standards and not misleading the public to buy into products or to buy into businesses that they otherwise wouldn't because of referrals from a friend type situations.
And you do actually see it a lot. Now, I don't think maybe the everyday consumer would see it, but when you're in media, I think you've got an eye for it. And sometimes I think you see things that are questionable or that you would wonder, but they just slip under the radar. This couldn't slip under the radar because they lent in to make it a joke and a PR stunt. Nine reprimanded Alex and stood him down. Initially, it was temporarily. And I even thought that was like, oh, that was a big call. I understand that you need to punish him in some capacity and be made to look like you were doing something. But I, at the start, was like, come on, guys. It was very obviously a joke. Alex made a statement saying, I was always going to give it to charity. Channel 9 made Alex give the money back to Adrian Portelli. And Adrian Portelli then split the money and donated it to two of Alex's chosen charities. So to be clear now, Alex did not take $1 and said he was always going to donate it to charity, which a big part of me believes because he's in media. He's been there with the network for 5 years. You do know the laws. He was so open and public about it. It's hard for me to believe that he would have been that silly. I think the intention was always to gain some form of publicity for the show, for himself, for the segment. That's why Karl Stefanovic doubled down and also made his jovial comments as well. Now he's been completely let go from the network. He will not work there again because of this cross. And I personally feel like that has gone far too far.
It's an interesting one because I think a lot of people feel as though there needs to be some sort of, he needs to be reprimanded in some way, because I think it's tricky when you start to bend the rules and say, well, this type of cash for comment situation's okay, but then this type of cash for comment is in the gray. The issue is that it's something that does happen pretty often across media. And obviously there are watchdogs and people are called out for it all the time. But it seems like this is the most severe reprimanding that we've seen, especially since he didn't keep the $50,000. He didn't profit from this in any way. And now he's lost his job. Alex came out and said that this has been a very difficult time. And I just want to say thank you to all the wonderful people who reached out. It means the world to me and to my young family. I miss my colleagues at the Today Show and wish them the best. Thank you again. And I look forward to whatever comes. So this is a presenter who's worked in that role for the last 5 years and worked alongside his co-hosts. I can only imagine that this has been a massive blow to the show and to the teams in general. But I guess I sit on two camps, because on one side, I think maybe the repercussions for this were too severe and don't seem to be in line with how Channel 9 has handled cash for comment situations in the past, which we'll get into in a moment. But also on the flip side of that, I'm like, it was so brazenly obvious that this went against the code of conduct. And people, as in the public, some people did have such an adverse reaction to it that I think that Channel 9's hands were sort of tied and they had to take action, but maybe it was too severe.
I would be shocked. There is no one that would have been upset by the fact that a billionaire gave a charity $50,000. If that was the way it was going to go. And all we have is Alex's statement of saying, of course, that's what I was going to do. Like, and this is why I find it hard to not believe him, because it was so obviously a joke and a stunt. He knows the rules. He shared the screenshots. There's no way he would have thought he was allowed to keep that. No one in media would have thought that that was going to be okay.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you think we feel differently about it when it's kind of posed as an on-air gag and one person seems to be benefiting from that on-air gag? Or is it more of an issue when it's a business that's profiting and it's done in a more sinister or manipulative way where someone's getting money back from a business in order to speak about them positively?
My problem is when people are really subtly trying to promote a business and then take the money. But for this, no one was genuinely being promoted. It was a list of people's names. No one would have batted an eyelid. No one would have thought twice about it. The money would have ended up going to charity, which is why I have an issue with the fact that he's been stood down, because we know that there have been people that have done far worse and taken money and profited from supporting businesses on the sly that haven't had the same repercussions. So I think for me, that's where my issue comes from.
I think it's important to establish why these laws were brought in the first place, because they are rules that have been put in place to protect the public. So back in 1999, this was also the heyday of radio, where talkback radio had such a stranglehold across Australia. There was an inquiry that was done from Alan Jones and also John Laws, who were receiving cash from businesses. And some of these businesses were people like Qantas, Optus, Foxtel, banking associations, Rams Home Loans. There were so many businesses that were paying them in order for them to not speak negatively about their company on air. And this might not seem as significant now because I don't think talkback radio has the same hold on Australian public as it did then. But at the time, these people were so incredibly influential that they had the power to really sway people's opinions around brands and around companies.
Well, it was almost looked at as hush money as opposed to cash for comment, because it was like, we're going to pay you to not slag us and not sling mud at us. But they were found to have committed 90 breaches of industry codes of conduct worth estimated about $18 million. Like, this was a huge amount of money that we are talking about that they were either paid to speak on or paid to not speak on.
I think the interesting thing about it as well, and obviously we have a bit of more insight into the radio world, but at the time, those two men were seen as such like brute forces in broadcasting. Really, people trusted them. People had this like deep connection to the fact that they were the holders of information, and the way that they got that information about what was going on around them was from these two men in radio. So there was also kind of this like betrayal aspect to it, where they found out, the public found out, you have been profiting off of deliberately misleading me. And that's why the cash for comment rules came in. And for anyone who hasn't worked in media before, we have to do codes of conduct. When you work at a radio station, you have to do them every single year. You have to do compliance training. And I think it's the same for TV from what I've heard from friends. Like, it's a really big deal. They want to make sure that you're not doing things that are misleading to the public and you're financially benefiting from them, because it reflects that trust. It reflects the fact that the public can't trust what you're saying anymore.
The only thing is, though, that I think is questionable is that to me, that is such an obvious example of cash for comment. When you're receiving cash from a business to then promote that business in a positive light. Very, very clear cut. I don't think anyone would argue that that's misleading. We had those laws in place for influencers. Influencers can't work with brands without disclosing that they are getting paid by the brand to speak positively. In this instance of Alex Cullen talking about Lambo guy and calling him McLaren man, I just don't see who benefits from this.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't see, I actually think it's such a gray area for actually being cash for comment, because yes, he received cash and yes, it was a comment, but that comment wasn't about a business. It doesn't sway public's perception. It really was this like very jovial, PRable, almost like silliness to it. I get that a journalist shouldn't necessarily be paid $50,000 to say someone's name, but it doesn't have the same ramifications or impact on anybody as what these sort of examples do. And another example, which I think is really important, and the reason why I want to bring this up is because it's comparative. So this happened under Channel 9. Last year, there was an inquiry on Ben Fordham, who works on 2GB, which is part of Channel 9, for anyone who doesn't know how that's structured. The inquiry found that he had broken the laws around cash for comment and that he had spoken about Uber, of which he is an affiliate for. So what happened on the show was that Ben Fordham, who is paid an incredible sum for his radio show, it's estimated that he's paid around $1.5 million a year. He was speaking about Uber, saying that he has a secondary job. He'd taken his very first Uber passenger, and he spoke about how convenient Uber is and what a great secondary employment it is and the flexibility of it.
Why was he on a secondary employment on $1.5 million
Well,
a year?
that's exactly the question that was raised, right? And the question is, maybe he never was doing Uber as a secondary job, not because he needed to by any means, but actually because he was being paid to speak positively about the company. But none of this was disclosed. So the reason why I think we wanted to unpack this and kind of be like, well, why is this not apples for apples, is that the reprimanding for that situation of Ben Fordham was simply that he was expected to do more training, and the team around him, the production team, had to do more compliance training. So they would have had like a half day of compliance training, and it never really made media. It never really became a big song and dance. But in this instance with Alex Cullen, it has become such a huge thing. And I think it's to do with the media spotlight that was put on it. This couldn't just be swept under the carpet because of the publicity that it gained. And I think it's kind of unfair when you have two different media personalities who have done similar things. One arguably is far worse, and he has received absolutely no punishment for it, and the other person has lost his job. I just think the comparison is really unethical.
I don't think it's fair at all. And I try to put myself in that position when I'm talking about these subjects, because I think it's important to be like, what would I actually have done? And
Britt's like, I would have gone for the $50,000 cash.
I would have. Well,
I'd name this episode McLaren Man for 50 grand.
We will. This episode is called McLaren Man.
An ode to McLaren Man. I do wonder if it's a bit of a bendy area that Alex would have said, you know what, I think I'll be fine. Like, surely there will be no repercussions of this. If we can get $50,000 from a billionaire that doesn't need it and give it to a charity that needs it, tell me a person that wouldn't say yes. It was so open and obvious. I don't think that he would have thought that this would have happened.
Yeah, I think the thing that has been raised, though, is that maybe the charity aspect came as a response to the punishment. So, I mean, for anyone who's not familiar with the timeline, Alex himself hadn't come out prior to the investigation is saying that publicly that it was going to go to charity. So people are kind of calling a little bit bullshit and being like, oh, you're only saying that now because you're in trouble for it.
I also don't know how he would have got the bank transfer to begin with without giving his bank details to
Exactly.
McLaren Man.
So
do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just transfer $50,000. I don't know if you can pay ID that.
And I think that that's the issue, is like, if you did have every intention to give it to a charity, why wouldn't you have just said, hey, I don't need that $50,000. Can you donate it to this charity and send me the transfer so that I can see that you've transferred it to a charity? Why does it need to go into your bank account to then go into a charity bank account? So
yeah, I get that.
I understand that it probably raised some alarm bells for a few people, and I don't want to necessarily like question his intent with it, because there could be a very good chance that he did intend to donate it to a charity. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the money, and there has been $25,000 donated to Salvation Army, and there's been $25,000 donated to the RSPCA. My big thing from this is that I think it is disappointing that a journalist has completely lost his job when other people have received a slap on the wrist for it. That is kind of the part where I go, these rules need to be in place, but it's how we enforce them, and shouldn't there be a standardized way that we approach these situations?
The only other thing that makes sense to me is that when he's sat down to do the training online, you know, when you just click done, but you don't read it. He just didn't read the codes of conduct. Like, you know, you're like, yeah, I've done it, fast forward, because no one else would make such a blatantly obvious decision if you had read the rules.
I don't know. He would have had to have been aware of them because he's been a journalist for so long. The thing that I find really interesting is that I think regardless of whether he would have donated it to charity to begin with or not, I think the same rules still apply. And I very much, I can't believe I'm actually completely defending Channel 9 here. I really do think it is important that these rules are in place and are enforced. And even though this situation seems as though it's very victimless, I think that if you, like you said before, Laura, if you start to bend the rules for certain situations, well, then you've got to bend them for all of them. And the reason that I think they had to crack down on this was because it was so obvious.
But they bent them for everyone else.
Yes, and that's my issue. I understand, and I absolutely agree with you. I do think that those rules need to be in place. And I think, if anything, they need to be enforced in a way that's far more consistent. And I just don't think that it's fair when ACMA says, okay, well, on one side, we're going to do an inquiry, and on the other side, someone's going to lose their job. And the determining factor for that is purely publicity. That is what I think is unfair. Public scrutiny shouldn't be the determining factor as to how bad someone's punishment is. Because if that was the case, it's like, well, on one hand, Ben Fordham just got away with it because no one really cared about the whole Uber situation. But that was arguably worse. So yeah, that's kind of why I sit in the gray with this one. I don't think that Channel 9 are the perpetrator in this situation. I know that they had to do something, but I don't think that you can have a varied response in these situations.
Right now, do you think the other networks, do you think all of the radio presenters, do you think all of the radio networks are going to be more transparent, or do you think they're going to be more careful about making it more subtle so that people don't pick up on the fact that this is happening?
I think, look, I mean, we've come a long way in terms of people having decent media literacy and being able to sniff out ads, as opposed to, say, like 10 years ago. I think the general public didn't have a good grasp, say 10 years ago, especially, and I'm talking about in general, I'm talking about social media as well, when someone was being paid to influence a product or to influence a business. I do think that in general, we have become a little bit more media savvy and media literate. But I would say that this happens, and I know you mentioned it earlier, Britt, it happens so frequently, especially on like morning shows, on some radio shows, where people will subtly talk about a product or subtly talk about a business that they love, but also they are in some ways getting a kickback from them, whether it's obvious or not. And I just think that maybe partly, yes, I do think that networks will be a little bit more subtle about it for a period, but I also think these things are flash in the pans. I think that as soon as the media cycle of this has died down, they will go back to doing the same things. And I just think that they've made a scapegoat out of Alex Cullen, out of the journalist, when in this situation, it really hasn't caused a lot of harm to anyone, which I think is a bit disappointing.
I do think it's funny. Adrian Patelli did come out and say, like, you know, if Alex loses his job, I'll hire him. I'll give you a job. I've got jobs going. Anyway, the jobs came out. They're like videographer jobs. It's like social media, like recording jobs. I was like, I don't think that's Alex Cullen's alley.
You never know. You could upskill.
All right, it is time for Accidentally Unfiltered, your most embarrassing stories. And if you had one for us, please send it on through. 2 years ago, I went on a Kentucky trip to the UK solo, and I had the time of my life.
Yes, queen.
Since I was traveling solo, I had organized with my travel agent that I wanted transfers from my hotel to the airport. Anyway, I had a male friend from my Kentucky who I teed up to have a shower at his hotel before my international flight that evening. We went to dinner, and I had the best ramen of my life. This information is not imperative to the story, but you know.
I love that though. We love a ramen.
It adds color. I went back to his house with him, had a shower, and shoved all my dirty clothes from the day of sightseeing into my backpack. Anyways, I then ran back to my hotel that I had checked out of and hopped into my private transfer to get to the airport. I decided to rearrange my backpack whilst I was in the car and pulled out all my dirty clothes and refolded them, put them into the bag. The driver offered to turn the light on for me as it was completely dark, but I was like, no, it's okay. Anyway, we arrived. I got my luggage, my backpack, and I headed into the airport. And as soon as I'd walked through the security, I got a WhatsApp message from my driver. It was just a picture of my worn G-string from the day, dirty side up, sitting in the back seat of his car. It gets worse. He called and then said that he was out the front. And when I went back out, he had it hanging from his finger out the window. Mortified. If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Why?
Also, why is he touching it? Just throw it in the bin.
Okay, hang on. I have a similar story. Last year when I was in the Maldives on holiday with Ben, we were on a little island because everything in the Maldives is an island. And it was time to go. So to leave the hotel, you pack up and you get a speedboat or some kind of a boat back to the main island to fly out. And so we got on the boat, did the trip, and it wasn't a speedy boat. It was a medium speed boat. Just Ben and I, we medium sped back from our island to the mainland. And when I got off the boat, there was a member of the hotel staff waiting for us to greet us. And I was like, how did you get here? And in his hand, he had a gift bag. And in the gift bag was beautiful blue, had the hotel's name on it. And I said, oh my God, Ben, they've like brought us a gift to say like, thanks for coming and staying at the resort. And so he gives me the gift and I was like, thank you so much. Like wonderful. Anyway, I was so excited and I opened the bag and there is nothing in the bag except a dirty, old, rank G-string. So I had obviously left one pair of undies. They've seen it as soon as we've checked out. They have packaged my dirty undies up, speedboated it to the island to get there before me and handed me back my dirty undies. I was mortified.
That is amazing service.
Impeccable service.
Speaking of dirty undies, do you remember when I went to the beach and I picked up underwear that I thought was mine that I dropped and I got home only to find that I'd picked up someone else's dirty undies from the beach and brought them home?
Why are we all so rank?
I don't know. We've got some issues.
Anyway, let's do suck and sweet.
My suck for the week, I'm going to keep it snappy. My suck for the week is that this last couple of days, 3 days, I think is the first 3 days that I've really felt the pinch of parenting solo, and also not just parenting solo, but like not having someone to share the weekend with. It makes everything a little bit harder. So
I feel that, yes.
yeah,
I don't share any of my life with anyone.
I know, but doing it like with kids in tow. Yeah, it just kind of felt a bit relentless, and there were quite a few battles this weekend, which I don't normally have to do solo. Usually when you're having a battle with the kids, Matt will step in and he will take over for a bit, and then like, you know, you can tap out because you're overstimulated, you're tired, you're also feeling frustrated, and there is no one to tap out to. So that has been a little bit challenging. We're 2 weeks into him being away, and the girls are also not coping with it very well. They miss him even Lola. So much.
Even Lola.
They miss him so much.
This is probably what he needed.
They really do. And my sweet for the week was that yesterday morning I took the girls. I mean, we went to another water park, would you believe it or not? But we went to this like place called Wild Play. It's in Centennial. If you're a mum and you've got kids, I fucking highly recommend, not getting paid to recommend that, just FYI.
Not cash for comment.
No cash for comments.
From the water park.
No, Centennial Park is not giving me kickbacks. But we just had a really, really good morning together. And like amongst the chaos of me saying that I felt like parenting was relentless, that was one particular part of our long weekend that I was like, my kids are cool. And they're at an age now where I'm like, you guys are cool. Like I like you as people, not just as kids.
Yeah,
you know, not just because you're my kids. I like you because you've got a backbone, Lola. Yeah.
Okay, well, my suck this week was the last couple of days I've had really bad vertigo, which makes me sound like I'm 100 years old. You might remember I had it last year. I spoke about I had it one night last year, but I've had it for 2 days now. So it's like I get it in my sleep. So when I roll over in bed,
It's so weird.
it's so weird. When I roll over in bed, I'm so dizzy that it wakes me up. So I had it both nights for 2 nights. And then this morning I thought we were fine. And then I got to work and I was getting a coffee and I was with another work colleague and just like fell down on the lounge. Like out of nowhere, everything is fine. And then I get this hectic moment of vertigo and I need to sit down and then it passes again.
Did you do a pregnancy test
I've done 3 pregnancy tests now.
today? Yesterday?
Yes, I'm not pregnant.
Okay.
I don't know how to double down on this. There's been a period and 3 pregnancy tests. I am
Okay.
not pregnant because I have had so many people message me saying you're pregnant.
Well, it's only because yesterday when we talked, you said you hadn't done one since Dubai. And then like tracking back on your cycle, you still hadn't gotten your period. And I was like, maybe just do one. Just do it to be sure.
No, I forgot that I had my period on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's a different conversation then from yesterday. Things have changed, haven't they?
I'm 100% not pregnant. It's just a really random.
That sucks.
So I hope it passes because it's like, yeah, it's pretty hectic. And my sweet this week, I'm going against the rules. We're not allowed to say the same thing twice. I don't care. My sweet is Ben. moving to Italy and getting like not just that it's Italy, but getting the job of a lifetime. I'm just so proud of him. I'm the proudest fiance. I could cry now thinking about it. He sent me like photos of him and his manager taking the like usually family members. I'm really sad. Usually like partners and family are there, and it's a really big nice moment that you sign and you're there together, and they always get photos, and I'll just never get to
honey.
do that with Ben. And so he just sent me photos of him alone and just with his agent, and like I should have been there, and it was really upsetting because I was like I should be there with you, not just like saying well done from the other side of the world. So that was also another suck, but I'm really proud of him. So that's my sweet.
And my sweetest is that we all get to go to Italy now.
A pasta.
And roll around in some garlic. That is it from us, guys. We hope you loved the episode. If you did, go and leave a review. God, the highs and lows. Now Britt's crying. Don't stop. I'll come and hug you. And also, you can watch any of this on Facebook. Sorry, you can watch any of this on YouTube. We don't actually put it on Facebook. And we'll put the links to everything in the show notes. And you know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because we love them. We love them.